National Chess Master Rats here to continue my series on how to play the chess openings, and today I'm going to cover a little bit of the Queen's Gambit declined. The accepted is pawn takes and the Slav defense is c6. I'm not going to cover those today. Instead I'm going to focus on the main line declined, and I want to cover the main lines to give you an idea. You'll have to do a lot of the research on your own, but I'll give you an indication how to play these games. Okay, let's just look at some of the main lines. Okay, the Lasker defense is to play bishop e7, and what happens is black castles, and then you kick this bishop, gain a tempo. Now I had, when I was like a 1400 player, I had somebody play h4 against me, and it's not really a good move because it's one of those positions black can survive, but that's a whole nother story. It's something you can investigate on your own. I achieved a winning position and then proceeded to butcher it, but anyway, the main line is to play bishop h4, and then the knight comes to e4, and this is traded, and then white takes this pawn, and you need to take the knight first, otherwise the pawn on d5 hangs. I made the mistake once, even though I knew the line. Anyway, you more or less reach this position, and the chances are about even. And you can do a little research on this. Black still needs to complete his development on the queen side, but then again, white needs to get his king side development up and running. And anytime black plays c4, or white plays c4, black may be acquiring a queenside pawn majority. The idea of a queenside pawn majority is you want to eventually create an outside pass pawn and divert the white king or white pieces over there and then to that side of the board while you wreak havoc on the other side of the board. That's the theory. It's easier said than done. Okay, so we've covered the Lasker defense. One option is to, at some point, is to for black is to play b6, and this is, I'll cover this in a moment. This is similar to the Tartakower variation, and I'll cover that in a minute. Spassky employed this against Fischer in their match in 1972, where Fischer surprised the chess world in Game 6 by opening 1c4, and it went into a Queen's Gambit decline, an opening Fischer never played, but he'd actually been preparing this a couple of years ahead of time in case he played Spassky in the USSR versus the world match, and Fischer gave up board 1 and played Petrosian on board 2, allowed Bent Larson to play Spassky. Yeah, someone wants to chat with me. Making a video, please leave me a message. Okay. Anyway, I get friends requests and chat requests all the time. I go into live chess, so I don't like to ignore anybody. Apologize. I'm not going to start this video over. Okay, a little bit more about the Tartakower in just a moment. One of the other main lines that black will employ is knight bd7. Now, I want to cover the exchange variation first, and we'll come back to it in a little bit. The exchange variation for white is to take this pawn. Now, there's a certain set theory and objective. I've covered this in a number of my videos, and what you're supposed to do is follow the set theory, and if you don't, you can run into trouble. And I have a game example. Let's just develop the pieces, and I'll show you what the theory is. Okay. At some point, black needs to play c6. I'll just get it in now. Okay. Now, what you have here is what we call the minority attack. Okay, what white wants to do is employ a minority attack, and the objective is to advance a pawn to b5. You have to do it safely, of course. You know, the rook will go to b1, and once you get the pawn to b5, and of course if black plays a6, you're going to throw a4 in. But the point is, once you get a pawn on b5, if black takes on b5 with a c6 pawn, he ends up with an isolated d pawn. And if black doesn't take, white will capture. And if black takes back with a pawn, he's got a backward pawn on the open file. And if black takes back with a piece, well, we're back to this isolated D pawn. And that's one weakness. You need two to win. Well, you've got one. Okay, you're either going to get a weakness on C6 or weakness on D5. So you say, well, this is no fun for black. What's he supposed to do? Well, the answer is black's supposed to do a minority attack himself. And black's minority attack will eventually involve him getting F4 in, and the same concepts I was discussing take place again. If white takes on F4, white has an isolated D pawn. And if white doesn't take, black takes on E3, and white has a backward pawn on the open file. Okay? So that's basically, in a nutshell, the concept of how to play this opening. And the game I'm going to show you when I get into the games out of my chess history, I'll show you an example of this, and I think you'll find it highly instructive. Okay, so let's go back. And this is just, like I say, the exchange variation. Let me find the right spot here. Okay, let's suppose white doesn't take. Wrong place, dang it. Come on, there it is. Okay, let's suppose white doesn't take. Okay, suppose white works on developing his king side. Okay, so anyway, E3, the Tartakower variation is to play B6, and black will fianchetto this bishop, and let me just show you a concept I want to illustrate. Okay, it's the concept we call the hanging pawns, and I'll get to it in just a moment. I'm just going to make some moves. I'm not exactly sure the normal book order, but a lot of these things transpose. Okay, at some point, white goes here. Black will play C5. Now here's what we call the hanging pawns. They're almost there, not quite. Okay, these two pawns are the hanging pawns. Okay, they're not hanging like loose and able for capture, but if you notice, neither pawn can be protected by a pawn. So they're both targets. It's similar to having a backward pawn on the open file. If one of them advances, for instance, if this one goes to C4, it leaves a gaping hole on D4, and then the pawn on D5 is a backward pawn. And similarly, if the pawn goes to D4, the C5 pawn becomes a backward pawn. So they're both already, in a way, backward, but they have some fluidity at the moment. However, black has a lot of free piece play in compensation for this, and I guess the perfect example I like to quote, if you go back to the Karpov-Korchnoi match, World Championship match of 1981 in Murano, Italy, Game 1, Karpov took the hanging pawns and equalized the position, and eventually Korchnoi made a mistake, and this D4 advance that I'd mentioned is a very tactical line and can often open up the position very nicely for the black pieces, and that's exactly what happened. So if you want to look at a master game where this took place, black just strengthened his position and got D4 in and game over. So there's some similar systems too. Let's back it up. Aside from the Tartakower, I want to show what happens in let's see, Bishop G5. Here's another line. It's called the Lasker Defence. Okay, named after. Let's see, is this the right way to do it? I'm trying to remember. Okay, let me just start over. Forgive me. No, it's not the right way to do it. Black does C5 right away. Okay, what happens here is black is going to accept an isolated D pawn, and it doesn't always get isolated. And this position is often reached by transposition from a lot of openings, including the English, and even King's Indian attack can lead to it, and 1 G3. But in a sense, let me just get to the main point. I think it goes takes, and then here, we're just, like I say, covering the main line. Now white has divergences. He can play E3. That's the slower line. I think G3 is the main line. Okay, and if I'm missing something in translation, don't worry. It's just by transposition. I'm just getting the key positions set up here. This is more or less the key position. I know if white ever takes on C5, black can get a nice game with a push. And there's about 8 main lines in this position. C4 is one of them. Bishop E6 is one. Even taking this pawn is one. Of course, this gives white kind of what he wants. He's blockading the isolated pawn with a knight. Okay. But again, black gets a lot of free piece play in this position, as he has open lines for his bishops and so forth. So just wanted to deduce the Tarrasch defense, and there's a related one. It's called the semi-Tarrasch defense. And let's back it up. C5 is delayed one move, and it comes in positions where white plays the slower knight F3. He doesn't opt to pin. And now you have black playing C5 right now. And this doesn't lead to an isolated queen pawns is for black, because he has a difference. His knight can now take. It's not pinned by a bishop. And what happens here is, I'm just showing you the main line. Black starts getting some wood off the board, and black basically has an equal and playable game. White maintains the advantage of the first move. Once again, we have the possibility that black can eventually get an outside queenside pawn majority. Now, there's a very interesting game too that. Back to the aforementioned Fischer-Spassky match of 1972 for the World Championship. Game 9, Fischer found some improvements on the black side of this, and that game ended in a draw. He's able to, at some point, this knight's on C. Well, let's back it up. I just remember the theme he did. It was kind of impressive. Like, for instance, I think it's knight c6, bishop c4. Black can actually play b5 here and gain a tempo, because white can't take the pawn because queen a5 check picks up the piece. So it's just something a little further for the discussion. If you're looking for defense with black, the Queen's Gambit declined has a wide variety of answers for you that'll get you an even game. And there's some positions that, let's back it up, where white will play bishop f4, and black should just continue his development the normal way, and everything should be fine, and he doesn't have to endure a potential pin. So this knight might be getting into the e4 square much easier. Okay, one other line I want to show, and let's see if I can think of some I missed. I'm trying to be thorough. Okay, it's what we call the Cambridge Springs defense. Now, at this point, when black gets c6 in, if white elects to take, black can take back with the c pawn, and he no longer runs into the nuances of if white plays this opening correctly. But what often happens, let me show you the basic position of the Cambridge Springs. Okay, I used to play this as black back in early 70s, like 74, 75. I played it for about a year and didn't have that many games with it. But what was remarkable, the first 4 times I played it as black, I won material. And any time, and these were against players rated anywhere from 15 to 1800. And I was winning material right out of the opening. Now, if I can show you an opening that will win you material every time, if you're 1200 or 1500 and playing people with similar ratings and they don't know this system, is how to play against this as white, wouldn't you like to know more? Well, yes, of course you would, and I'm going to show you when I get down to the illustrative games. But you might want to think for a moment. It's black's move. It's white's move. What should white do here? That's a very good question. What should white do? So pause the video for a moment and think what your main candidate move should be. And I'm going to answer the question not just yet, but store that in the back of your memory bank, and I'll show you when we get there with the Cambridge Springs what can go wrong for white here. And I think a lot of you, when you see these game examples, you'll be able to use this yourself, and chances are a lot of you are going to win material too. Now, the one drawback though with this whole Cambridge Springs is this bishop. Okay, this bishop just doesn't get into play for a long time, so you're going to have to kind of suffer a little bit with a bad piece. But if you're winning material, hey, that's great. Okay. Anyway, let me drag up some games, and then if I skipped anything, I'll remember it and cover it. You know, I pretty much know what to put in these videos, and I just do them all from scratch. Any video I make starts out with just me looking at the games and talking chess. Okay, this was played back in like January 1984, and my opponent allows the exchange variation of the Queen's Gambit. And what happens, and this is why I want to say this is knowing opening theory and what to do is so important, because I like to tell people I show this game to, I don't do anything other than what I'm supposed to. In other words, I didn't really have to dig in and start finding good moves. All I did was play what I was supposed to, nothing else. And as a result of these moves, playing the correct plan that was already given to me, I achieved a winning game because my opponent kind of self-destructed. And your opponents will do that. You know, we're not expecting your opponents to play like masters. We're expecting your opponents to have to figure things out. So, okay, so here he's all primed to do what he should do with his minority attack, right? And I need to get set up to do my minority attack. Well, the problem is black doesn't do what he's supposed to do, and I do. And let's just let this thing unfold. Now he blocks his f-pawn, which he should have advanced. Now I play rook b1 so that I can get b5 in. Now look at this. This is the wrong move. Here he should consider taking my knight. I'll take back, drop his knight in, tempo my queen. My queen comes back, and then get f5 in with the idea of f4. Well, he doesn't do it. Okay, so I get going. b4. I'm doing what I want to do. Now he does the right thing, and he still should be playing f5, but he doesn't. He starts getting tricky. Okay, so he's not following the path. Now I'm not doing anything other than what I have to do and what I'm supposed to do. I had to retake the knight, right? I had to get the queen back, right? I had mentioned earlier that you want to shove b4 in, and you might have to support it with a rook b1. So I just keep doing what I'm supposed to do. And now I've set up exactly what I want. Now I'm going to either give him a backward pawn on the open file, or he's going to have an isolated d pawn. But my opponent continues to get tricky, and he's threatening to double my pawns, so I take off his knight, and now I grab a pawn. And what did I do special? Nothing. Now he goes and threatens a checkmate. I stop that. I do take a weakness on e3, but I can live with that. And he moves his queen out, and bang, I pick up a piece. Now again, I didn't do anything special at all. Nothing. He gets a little bit of play. I just park my king in the corner, and I'm a piece ahead. He's got, let's see, I've got 4 pawns, he has 6. He has 2 pawns compensation. That's not enough. Okay, it's not enough. I'm going to win. And I'll just run through the final moves. Now I'm the one threatening a mate. And there's another mate threat, and created more weaknesses in his position. And we start to exploit them. And you know, all I've done the last few moves is just continue my attack. I achieved a winning game just by doing what I was supposed to do. And my opponent played a couple more moves, and I mean that was it. And here he resigned. Okay, so just goes to show you, if you do what you're supposed to do, good things can happen. Had I not followed the plan that I was supposed to, we would have had an even game. And so you want to know what to do. Now this next game, let's see. This is actually the first time I showed it. Let me, played it. Let me drag it up here. This gentleman was, I think, in the 7th grade that time. He's a future FIDE master. Probably international master strength at some point. And let's flip the board so we're going to look at this from Black's perspective. We're going to see the Cambridge Spring defense in action. Okay. There it is. Okay. Now he plays Queen C2. Is that the move you thought? Well, it's not the right move. It's not a bad move, but it can lead to trouble. So here comes trouble. Now I've got some action on the knight. He plays bishop d3, which is a blunder, and now you'll see the tactics. Okay, and just like that, double attack. I'm on his bishop, I'm on his knight, and bingo. And I went on to butcher this and allowed him to escape with the draw, but that's another story. You win a piece. Anytime you can win a piece in the opening, it's got to be worth it. You know, I was only like high 1700 strength back then, and I was erratic. Okay, next game. Same opening. Okay, let's see what happens here. Okay. I've got an 1800 player. This was played shortly after the other one. Let me check on the date. Yeah, just a couple months after March 1974. Okay, so bingo, there's the Queen Cambridge Springs, and he brings his queen out. Seems like the natural move, but it's not the best move. Okay, and we'll cover that in a little bit. Here he retreats the bishop so it doesn't run into trouble, but that gives Black a tempo to get something else into play. Here it is. And he kind of messes things up here. I grab that, and look, just like that. I'm winning material, and I play f5, and I went on to win this game. So just like that, a material gain for Black. Wow, this can be a good opening for you, but we'll see more here in a bit. This next game I won material with. Oh God, I remember this one. I think this didn't put his rating on. I think he's around 1500 or something. I achieved a winning game and then made a horrible blunder in the ending that he had a win with, and he didn't see it, and then I won. Ugh. That was, like I said, I was very erratic back then. To some degree, I still am. Okay, so I still miss these one movers. There's the move again. Now here he played a3, and fine, knight e4, rook c1. Now I have I take his pawn. And now I'm threatening his bishop. See, the knight's on the bishop, and his knight's pinned. So he comes back, and now again I'm going to win some material. He takes with the rook, and now I have a little tactic. Bishop takes a3. His rook's pinned, and he can't take with the pawn. So knight d2, and I grab this. Look at all those pawns I've got. And can you believe I managed to get a losing game out of this later? Well, I did. But hey, you won't. I just was overconfident. Let's just look a little bit more. And I liquidated him down, and there's this horrible bishop. But oh well, live with that if you're winning material, right? Okay, next example. I think I only got a pawn out of this one. Let's see. So here we go, Cambridge Springs, and a3 again, so knight e4. Now the other guy had played bishop h4. He came up with queen a4. Okay, so my queen's loose, so I traded. He took back, and I gobbled his bishop, and then I took this pawn. Now if you look, he can't take the pawn on c4 because he's going to run into a fork. And so he went back, and I don't know, maybe I should play b5 here. Looking at it now, knight b6, holding on to the pawn, and maybe this is premature. I ended up losing the pawn back due to my carelessness, and then I went into an opposite colored bishop position and ended up a draw. So I didn't win all these games. I should have won all of them. I could have lost them all too. But the idea is to show you an opening that you can win material with and go from there. But here I've held on to the pawn. I don't have any more of the game score right in front of me. But that should be enough to suffice to give you some of the ideas what to do in this position. Now it baits the question that I asked earlier: how are you supposed to play this? I'll drag up this other game. Those were all played in winter and spring of 1974 through May, and according to my old scorebooks, I didn't play it again until January of 75. And I guess I like a challenge. I used to tell people at the club I always win material with it. So finally somebody went and prepared and knew what to do. So we're going to answer the question: what should white do in this opening? And I'll show you in just a second. That was the question I posed way back when. And we'll ask it again. We've seen a3, it didn't work. We've seen queen c2, that can run into trouble. What should white do? Well, it's not an obvious move unless you have studied theory, and it'll make perfect sense when you see it. The answer is knight d2. It seems kind of odd to take a centralized knight and put him over there, but by doing this, white shuts off all the cheap tactics that black was using in the last 4 games, and says, okay, fine, I'm gonna just develop my pieces and see what we can do about this bishop. And I didn't play this game all that well, and it ended up a draw, but I probably butchered a drawable ending. Let's just run through the game, and we'll get an idea what happens here. I had my tactic on his bishop, so he has to cover that. You do get the bishop pair out of this, but this bishop isn't that hot. Okay, I run over there and come back. Knight castles queenside. That's kind of ambitious. I guess I should be thinking about attacking his king. Well, I don't know what I'm doing back then. I'm just a high 1700 player stuck in a rut. Okay, want to trade queens? Okay, fine. There goes my attacking chances. And but I didn't win any material this time, and I've still got development problems here. So how do I get out of them? And now he just gets rid of my bishop pair, and now I put a pawn on a square where it can be a target. I don't know, that probably wasn't wise, but what the heck. Little trick to get rid of some wood. And essentially this is a drawn position, but I managed to make life difficult on myself. There's no point in really going any further. But in essence, that's the Queen's Gambit Decline Cambridge Springs defense, that if you employ, at least you know what to do if they take you into the exchange variation, right? You know to advance your f-pawn. And as you see in the first game that I showed, that dark or light squared bishop as a black's on c8 eventually gets an open diagonal. Well, it will get an open diagonal because white's exchanging on d5. But then you know how to play it. Black needs to be pushing for f5 and f4. And if white doesn't do what he's supposed to do, chances are you can end up with a success similar to what I did. You just do what you're supposed to do and watch the white self-destruct. Okay, so once again, as with the other videos I made on the opening series, there will be a thematic team tournament, or not team, a thematic tournament for this. I'm probably going to reduce the entries. Still haven't filled the other 2 up, but I'm going to get them filled here shortly. I'll probably reduce the entries just to get them started quicker because some people want to play, And but the nice thing about these is once one section fills, I'm going to start a new one. So some people will discover this opening series months or maybe even years from now, and I want to always have a tournament open, even if it's only 4 players. I want to give you guys a chance to try these openings out. And I've got a method for my madness, so to speak, of what I want to show and how I want to show it. And some things like the minority attack will appear in other openings and with colors reversed. So eventually, as I say, I'm going to cover every major opening. Now I'll have to come back and visit the Queen's Gambit twice. I'll have to cover the Slav, and I'll have to cover the Queen's Gambit Accepted. But I will get back there. And, you know, I haven't counted how many there's going to be. I don't know how long it's going to take to get them done. I know a lot of you want certain openings covered. I wish I could just rush out and do them all at once, but I can't. These are going to happen in time. And I thank you for looking at them, and just be patient with me, because this will be unique. You'll understand how to play these openings, and for as erratic as my chess was way back when, I've given you a very viable weapon. And I've got more of these little offbeat openings that technically aren't that good for black, but if white's not careful, he won't know what to do. And, you know, again, the majority of you are not rated over 2,000, where chances are your opponent knows what to do. You're going to be rated much lower, and you're going to run into people that don't know what to do. And this will help your confidence as you be able to achieve winning games, and then lead you eventually into playing more sound openings. Because the Cambridge Springs really, it shouldn't get you all that much unless white butchers it as he did in those other examples. Okay, I thank you so much for your time, and take care. Bye.